Hello, I'm Neil Bradley, Executive Vice President and Chief Policy Officer at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. In your home this evening, if you turn on the TV to the local news, chances are pretty good that you'll see a story about a business in your hometown impacted negatively by the rise in retail theft and organized crime. Smash and grab jobs where stores are looted all at once by a gang of organized criminals, or stores that are ransacked overnight hours, or stores that are forced to close because they no longer feel that they can keep their employees safe, has sadly become a routine element in our nightly news and our shared existence across the United States. These, of course, are not victimless crimes, as individuals lose neighborhood stores, places of employment, and of course, costs are passed along to other law-abiding citizens. That's the reason it's become such a focus for us at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, understanding what we can do to combat this epidemic of organized retail crime. In the course of our conversations, we've had the opportunity to meet real leaders in this space who are making a difference in their community. There's no greater leader in this space than our guest today. Summer Stephan is the district attorney for San Diego County in California. She served in this role since 2017. She's also the vice president of the National District Attorneys Association, and perhaps most deservedly was just recognized by City Journal as one of the 5 best prosecutors in America. Today, we're going to learn from her about what steps are being taken at the local level and what we can do at the state and national level to confront this epidemic. Summer, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be with you, Neil. It's a great opportunity to educate and learn together.
So I want to kick us off by sharing some new survey data that we just got back at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We went out, as we routinely do, and we surveyed small businesses. And this time we happened to survey small business retailers, the shops on every main street corner in the United States. And they told us something quite disturbing. A majority said they had been a victim of retail theft or shoplifting in the past year. A near majority said that the problem was getting worse over the past year. And more than 50% have had to raise prices to deal with the increased costs as a result of theft. I'm curious if this matches what you're seeing in San Diego and what you're hearing from those in law enforcement across the country.
You know, retail theft is a big issue. It's a big public safety issue, and it is across the nation, and it definitely is in San Diego County. I think the difference is the strategic approach that we've taken to attack it, to combat it, so that these businesses feel that they have a voice, that they have support, that we feel their pain both economically and emotionally. Essentially, these stores, have become like a war zone. And so it's not just the economic loss that I worry about. It's the emotional, mental health loss where they don't feel safe in their place of employment. They don't know when the next time, what the next time will bring, what that person will do. Are they going to pull a knife? It's the increase of both the economic loss and the violence that's now going alongside these retail thefts.
Yeah, that's so important because you're right. It's not just the dollars and cents. The idea that you can have a safe community, that families can go out to Main Street and maybe stop in a local eatery and do some window shopping and real shopping in the process of doing that. All that evaporates if people don't feel safe. Now, you've taken a very forward-leaning approach to address this problem in San Diego, and you haven't been shy about getting people organized to help confront this. What specifically are you doing, and what's been the impact of your efforts?
Well, we know that this issue is big. It's organized. They're repeat offenders that are coming in time after time. It's not the young person who just sees an item that they want and it's a one time, they never repeat it again. That is not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with organized criminals that are ripping off stores and terrorizing these businesses and communities. So the only way to attack it is by being even more organized than they are. And that's what we brought to this fight, is having a dedicated team of a prosecutor that's really experienced, knows how to put together big cases, and investigator, and coming alongside our local law enforcement and our businesses, meeting regularly, understanding what the trends are, taking video images from the variety of businesses, because many times these perpetrators are masked or they try to put a cover over their license plate. So you have to really put all of the images together to crack the case, and then being able to put a prosecution together that's going to hold up. And by doing that time and time again, we've been able to send a message that San Diego County is really not going to be your best option to steal and hurt these businesses and hurt the employees and hurt customers. But my worry is that this is not happening across our nation. They're dealing with each case as a one-off when this is an organized crime trend. So you have to meet the moment by changing our laws and changing the way that we enforce and prosecute these cases.
So let's dive into some of those changes. You mentioned the organized nature of this. We've had members of the U.S. Chamber who've told us that they have thieves coming into their store literally with a shopping list in one hand, a calculator in the other, and they're literally going through stealing items off the shelf, ringing them up because they know that if they steal less than whatever the felony threshold is, that they won't be prosecuted. And this is, in many ways, it's just a loophole in the law, because in many states, you can't aggregate the offenses, as you said, when these are repeat offenders. Are those some of the laws that we need to change, that you're advocating for changing, the ability to aggregate or to go after people across jurisdictional lines? What specifically are some of the changes that you think will help make the difference?
There are two changes that need to be made, urgently. One of them is the ability to aggregate. Most states change their laws so that most thefts are misdemeanors, and there's no aggregation where you're able to put a case together in one store, the next store, add the amounts together to show that this is really an organized crime activity, and also be able to prosecute cases from other jurisdiction, contiguous counties in one county, so that you can bring the most bang for the buck. The laws changed, but they did not put a protection for the recidivists, the repeat offenders. They had some good intention of just addressing one time, one off, low level thief, but this is not what we're dealing with, and there are no protections for that. The other big loophole is that we did all of these regulations for pawn shops to be able to track the thieves that bring stolen products to pawn shops. Well, now what we have is a different kind of pawn shop. It is the marketplace that's on social media. It is the internet marketplace. And these big marketplaces where stolen goods are being sold, and I'm not going to name what they are, but there are many of them, have no protections. They don't even keep a track record of the individual that put these items up for sale. So we have all these protections for the small pawn shops so that law enforcement can do our job and track stolen goods that way, but we don't have those same protections online, which is what's allowing this business, this criminal industry to increase and become bigger and bigger at the tune of millions, if not billions of dollars that are being lost. And that cost is passed on, obviously, to customers, because how can you keep up with shelves being cleaned out? And like you said, Neil, these are shopping lists. These are organized activities. They're shopping for a specific item before Christmas, certain items. certain tools that maybe are really popular, certain brand of jeans, certain perfumes around Valentine's time. So it is all an organized business. This is a gangs, this is a criminal industry, a criminal organized crime, but the laws are not giving us those tools to deal with it as the organized crime that it is.
Yeah, this is so much different than what we think of when we used to think of theft in the store, right? Where, as you said, someone was shoplifting something that maybe wrong, but maybe they thought that they needed or filling a need. This is folks who know what they can resell online, who are sending people out to collect those things. You know, you see these stories on the news of, you know, an eyeglass shop just wiped out of frames, and you're wondering, what are they going to do with all those frames? Well, those frames are going back to the organizers of that retail theft ring, who are then marketing them online, unbeknownst to the customers who are buying what in this case would be stolen goods. And it seems like the system is kind of broken down at every spot in that practice, right? So folks are able to sell these goods online without ever revealing who they are, this whole know your customer thing. That the criminals can get away with it because no one's tracking them back to the people actually doing the theft. And the folks who are actually doing the stealing in the stores aren't getting prosecuted because of these aggregation issues. How important is it that we tackle each part of kind of that chain if we hope to arrest this epidemic?
That's exactly right. We have to address each part of this. You have in many of these thefts that we're seeing. We did recently, and our team got awarded the statewide prosecutors of the year for this organized retail theft operation, where we took on a $700,000 theft from multiple stores in a chain of stores across Southern California. And they were looking for certain items, and they had crews that were the boosters on the ground. Then they had other crews that were responsible for fencing the items at the marketplace. But before they fence them, they make sure that they're repackaged as if they're new, with a label, with everything. So this is an absolutely organized crime activity, and we need the laws to deal with it. We need to be able, we know that it's going to go, and they're not going to sell 100 eyeglasses just just on the street. So it's going to go to the marketplace, and to be able to get the name of who sold it, the ID, all of the things that were required for pawn shops in order to get to the head of that ring, the monster head. That's what we need. And for now, we don't have the tools to do that. No matter how many search warrants, the best success we've had is using cell phones, taking the cell phones when we are able to arrest the boosters that come in and rip off everything, being able to track that cell phone evidence to who were they communicating with, getting those search warrants, and then going from there to the fences, but then being able to hold responsible those fences. Once the product is already online, it's very hard to get restitution, to get that back to the business owners.
So, you mentioned these are online sales. So this isn't something that really local governments or even state governments can address very well. This really is national in scope. And so it's one of the reasons at the U.S. Chamber we've been pushing for Congress. And it looks like we're making progress right now in the U.S. Senate. We've made some progress already in the U.S. House to apply the same law that we apply to pawn shops to folks who want to sell large amounts of merchandise online. For those who are tuning in, that legislation is called the Inform Act. And if you think it's part of the solution, as we do at the U.S. Chamber, as Summer does, then feel free to reach out to your legislator and let them know that you hope that they get this bill done and that we close kind of this part of the chain. Summer, I want to talk a little bit about how retail theft factors into the broader context. So, in some ways, over the last feels like year or two, we've seen a lot of these incidents of theft turn more violent. And you open your comments talking about how dangerous it feels for these employees in the stores like this. Summer, it feels like over the course of the past couple of years, the stories that we read about of retail theft have become more violent with threats to employees and to customers. I'm curious if that's your sense as well, and also what danger there is that if we don't prosecute, if we don't go after the criminals who are stealing goods from stores, then what ends up happening is kind of this escalation, this condoning of illegal activity that leads to more violent actions and a real threat to our public safety.
We are definitely at that moment where this turning a blind eye to all of these losses and this uncontrolled theft that's happening, and our laws not really being there to deal with this organized smash and grabs and everything else, they are feeling very emboldened. So violence is becoming more the norm now. Recently an employee was murdered when he tried to intervene. We had a female security guard recently that was punched in the face. This is commonplace. The violence is coming with these thefts, which we knew would happen because what's happening is the boosters are being plied by the higher ups in the organization, sometimes with drugs, using their addiction. So you have people that are on these very potent drugs that are coming in, methamphetamine and other things, and they are acting out in a very violent, self-entitled way. And how dare you try to stop me? And many businesses, it's resulting with them closing and basically just not being able to stay in business because the risk of the violence, the risk of having people come in and hurt their employees and hurt their customers is just too big for them to be able to sustain it. I visited with a small business owner recently who sells perfumes, and he basically took to putting the cheaper perfumes towards the front and the more expensive towards the back, so that basically he's allowing the theft to happen and trying to minimize his own losses. That's an unacceptable state of affairs. We cannot continue this way. That's why I'm so thankful, Neil, to the chamber, because you're a voice for all of these businesses. Some of them are small businesses that don't have the voice in our federal government or in state local government, but you're bringing that voice. And that's why I appreciate it. I'm doing my part here in San Diego. We are sending a clear message that this is unacceptable. We're prosecuting that $700,000 ring. We were able to put a stop to it, get some prison sentences because we were able to grab cases from across the county. It was quite an uphill battle because the law is not very clear. And we need more laws to come on board. People shouldn't think of this as a victimless crime. That's the problem. That's such a way to lull us into a sense of just giving up. This is not a victimless crime. There are victims, not just the store owners, but the employees that depend on that job, the customers, and not to mention just that sense of safety in the community, the perception that you can go in a store and feel comfortable. Now, when people go and everything's locked up and you have to wait for the clerk to open all of the different cabinets for you, that already gives you a sense of a lack of safety. That's not civilized. And where there is no safety, nothing can thrive. This is a fight worth having, and let's continue to have it. Let's make sure people are educated and bringing their voice to their legislators, to their law enforcement leaders, to their prosecutors to do their job.
Well, Summer, I think the word you used, I think is the apt one, is this is just simply unacceptable. And the truth is that we don't have to accept it. As you've helped us understand today, There are things that we can do at the federal level to cut off the ability to sell these goods. There are things that can be done at the state level to make sure that the laws match how these criminal organized rings are operating. And of course, as you demonstrated yourself, we can have prosecutors who go out and prosecute these crimes and hold people accountable. I want to end with a sense of whether you're optimistic or not. I noted that you were recognized as one of the 5 best prosecutors in America. Congratulations to you, to a team member of yours who just got recognized for their efforts to prosecute retail crime in California. Are you getting a sense that other jurisdictions are waking up, that people are ready to take on this challenge and to win this fight against the epidemic of retail theft and organized crime?
I am optimistic. I am hopeful. I think, with the pandemic that we dealt with, there was zero bail that was imposed on many jurisdictions. There were extraordinary circumstances that allowed criminal activity to really rear its ugly head. And in my mind, nothing should be an excuse for it, but it's time to reset, and it's time to give our community what they deserve. Every child, adult, senior, every business should be safe. That is integral to democracy, is to be safe, to be able to thrive in pursuing the American dream, to pursuing democracy. It's central to it. I'm optimistic that there's been a wake-up call. The media has actually been very helpful on this issue, because seeing is believing. And the fact that these images, because of all the different videos that are playing, they're a gift to us, because now the public can really see what's out there, and it brings more attention and more concerted focus. Before, these store owners were suffering in silence, but now it's become national news, which allows a national conversation and more action to be brought to it. And like you said, and thank you for saying that, Neil, everything that awards that we've got in our office really are about our entire team working with the community that we're so grateful shares with us. We have something called the ORCA, the Organized Retail Crime Alliance, where we meet with business owners, small and big, law enforcement, side by side with prosecutors, and we talk through the issues and the challenges, and then we find a way to overcome them. So this is very important that it be national, but you can do something locally in whatever jurisdiction you're in.
Well, Summer, that is great advice for our audience tuning in today. Thank you so much for your efforts there in San Diego. Thanks for being a national leader and bringing attention to this issue and reminding people that we don't have to accept this, that we can take on this challenge, that we can solve this problem. For those of you who are tuning in who would like to learn more, I encourage you to go to uschamber.com. That's uschamber.com. Thanks for joining us today.